Oh, all right, here we are.
So, Dennis.
Hello.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening to you. What a fine day it is. What a fine day it is. A couple of days off, a little R&R.
Yeah?
A little company, a little fun. Yeah, right. It's like, oh yeah, I remember what I did before March 23rd, 2019.
Yeah?
Occasionally took a couple hours and did something fun.
Nice.
I did something other than work on my house and whatever that I do, spending all my time.
So what have you been doing?
Well, I've been doing a little of this, a little of that, and going to a few pubs locally, doing a little tasting of some beer. We played a little golf.
Played some golf.
Played a little golf. First time after the big wreck, after the slit wrist.
Yeah?
After the 90-minute surgery. And yes, we played golf. Yes, we played golf. We played golf.
Okay.
And you might be just a little bit pleased to know that tonight's podcast, we have a special guest to tell you in person
I can guess
the story of the first golf since the emergency surgery and the attempted suicide by Lamp Globe.
Right.
And
Is it a doctor?
It is a doctor. It is the doctor. It is the doctor.
The doctor's in the house.
It is the doctor.
Dr. Pud.
He's here.
It is the doctor.
The scribe.
Now showing himself.
A miracle.
For the first time.
It was a miracle.
For the first time.
In Kalamazoo, Michigan, it was a
For
miracle.
the first time. This is a first.
Bring in the doctor.
Take it over.
Special guest,
He's got it covered.
Dr.
He's
Pud.
taken, he's back,
So-
and he's ready to provide data.
Data. All right. So,
So I arrive in beautiful Kalamazoo on Monday morning, and Dennis, or Sunday afternoon, that was right, Sunday afternoon, and he says we might play golf, but I'm thinking that you can drive, and I'll just hit a couple shots from the fairway and chip a little.
right.
I said, well, that's reasonable. And he was telling me about this range of motion and giving me more photos of the surgical procedures. It was lovely.
Yes. Gruesome, I
So
think is the word.
we get to the first hole, and he takes a couple swings. I give him my pole to stretch with. He kind of stretches a little bit, goes out, knocks it right down the fucking middle of the fairway.
Yes.
Unbelievable. Gets a bogey by missing a putt.
Unbelievable.
Then has a par on a par 3. He's hitting all his shots. He's not saying any pain. Then I said, you're one over after 2 holes. The committee is going to be very concerned about a very good golfing debut. You better be careful. And
Right.
he immediately double bogeyed the hole. And I said, well,
As one should, yes.
the committee should hear about this. You're trying to explode on purpose, the sandbagger. Well, that just preceded the 4 pars in a row
Wow.
that he
Easy
knocked
game.
down. Easy game.
I mean,
And
if Tiger can come back from back surgery,
That's what
then
happened.
Dennis can come back and kick ass and take names.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Then he gets a bogey on the last hole. Otherwise, he would have shot a 40.
Whoa.
Unbelievable. So today, we go play the back 9. Yesterday was front 9.
Yeah.
Same thing. 41 big ones, and he's around the course, not hitting it as well. Wasn't taking divots. And his wrist only hurt like once. And he chipped in. I'm not saying anything about him borrowing one of my clubs to chip in with. I'm not going
Right.
to say anything about that in the total score things. He did sign his scorecard, however, and we're sending it to the USGA to see if it's forfeit. So
82.
I'm not positive.
82. Wow.
82. He was incredible and strong as an ox and hitting it great, putting it great.
Strong like ox.
Strong like ox. You
Yes.
should be so strong. Yeah, that's right.
I wish I was.
I do
Wow.
too.
Amazing.
It was incredible. It was an incredible display. That's what I have to say. So that was my part of tonight's happy hour.
Thank you very much.
I'm really happy to join you guys.
Special guest, Dr. Pud.
Dr. Pud.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, live in the studio.
So, from the horse's mouth. From the horse's mouth.
God's ears.
His mouth is.
He-
I want to talk
he's
about
not that
though.
ugly.
That's a whole other story.
My parents came to visit,
Oh, I saw the picture.
primarily for my eldest daughter's
quite
first communion.
quite lovely.
She's plenty happy to not have to go to church again.
Right.
Like she did the Catechism bit, and she liked the appeal of both the pretty dress and also the having everyone's attention for a day. And also, apparently, you get a bunch of cash from different family members. So she's loaded now.
Right. Like a dowry to be in the army for Jesus.
Dowry to be in the army, yes.
So there's a small business opportunity given in Spain, particularly given the size of the Catholic Church and the number of people. So what you do is we'll print up business cards, and we'll suggest that we're going to manage that acquisition of the money. So you publicize it, you collect the money, and you split it. You do like for every $10 that you get, you give the kid like 4. We would keep 6, but because we're doing so much, the 4 is like $1,000. So the kid's like, man, my friends only brought in like 300. I did 1,000. It's like, well, you did 1,000. Well, we did 1,600, and so we do that, and we do it across the board for a whole church of kids.
And we take 60% as the middleman?
Well, we're doing all the work. What's the kid doing? Taking a white wafer on the tongue and mumbling some stuff. I mean, it's not
Dennis. It's not a white wafer. It's the body of Christ.
Transubstantiation. I understand the entire thing where you're cannibalizing a ghost of a man that lived centuries ago, and you're eating body, drinking blood, whatever. That's why they wear those white dresses, because blood looks so stark on them. You see in the videos, and I've got a collection of these where when the little communion person with their white stuff on is drinking the blood, that it drips on the white, and it doesn't look like wine; it looks like blood. And it's why they wear white, so it stands out. You have
a collection of videos of wine-stained prepubescent girls.
No, and boys, doesn't matter. They're in white. It doesn't matter about the sex. It matters they're in white. And it's the contrast to the red and the white that I like so much.
Okay, well.
It's the blood red on the white. Look, this isn't weird.
Well, it's too bad. It's too bad.
Don't make it like it's weird, all right? Mr. Violent Man, you probably want to beat these kids up.
Just the bloody white clothed children.
Right.
Yeah. That's a fun afternoon spending looking at the pictures.
I don't do it every afternoon.
Okay. Sundays maybe.
Well.
I haven't been to Catholic Mass in America, just to Episcopalian Mass. But in Spain, when you do communion, they don't give you wine. Wine.
They give you what? Blood? Real blood? Goat's blood?
Yes.
Spanish goat blood.
Yes, you have to slit the throat of the
goat.
It's some sort of ungulate.
Kind of what?
Ungulate. Is this a word like tesseract that you think isn't really a real word?
No. I don't doubt you.
Ungulates are hooved creatures.
Oh well,
they're divided into single-toed ungulates like horses, and two-toed ungulates like camels.
Right. So you're an ungulate because you have hooved feet, is what your father told me.
Yes, that is. I'm an ungulatory ungulate.
And at first I didn't know whether to believe him or not, but then I did believe him because your mother burst into tears and ran from the room.
Right.
Because I might have been one of the few people that knew that you were hooved.
Well,
two-toed.
Now we're publishing this to all the world.
On pictures. You're like a newt, right?
I'm like a newt.
Well, what's the animal that's half goat, half?
I got beta. Sorry.
Playing the flute with little horns. Go boy. Hey. Hello.
It's not a newt. It's not a.
It's a centaur.
Good point.
No,
it's not a centaur. Centaur is lower part of the horse.
Good enough. Let's just go with that.
Yeah, I could be that.
Two hooved.
Really, you haven't seen? That's why I do my video conferencing with my hooven body below the desk where you can't see.
Of course. And we all have our crosses to bear. Yours is that you're hooved.
So back to what I was saying. The only person that gets to drink the wine at the Catholic Mass in Spain is the priest.
Of course.
And then everybody just gets a Christ wafer.
Those shouldn't be white. They should be beige.
Okay.
Or a little darker.
Well,
said Jesus wasn't white, so they should be the color of his skin.
True, although meat often isn't the color of the skin.
Well,
Unless you're thinking that's little slices of skin.
I didn't want to get all gross.
Okay.
I didn't want to get all gross, but you do.
I mean,
there's a limit to what people want to listen to.
Yeah, I think so.
And you cross the line quite a bit, in my view.
Well, I'm
now that
pushing
we've done 12 of these.
I'm pushing the border, pushing the envelope. The Overton window is the phrase that people like to use. You know about that? That's
so I don't know, but you don't want to hear something cool. The sun coming in through my window is giving me an aurora borealis against your face on the screen. It's really cool. It's different colors.
Yeah?
Oh yeah. Streaking. Uh-huh.
Whoa, man.
Oh, man.
It's like you can feel my aura.
Well, I don't want to.
My
I'd rather feel your cloven hooves, frankly. I think the fur leading into the cloven hoof is one of the most appealing parts of your impediment. But at least you can walk. So the thing I want to know
most appealing part
when
of your
you're walking
impediment.
quickly down the street with your wife to go to the club.
Yeah. Clippity cloppity.
Does the click clack of your hooves to draw attention?
Yes.
And does it embarrass your wife, or does she clap her hands to the beat of the cloven hoof? There's a song in there.
Yes, the clip clop of my husband's feet.
No,
no, hooves.
My
man's man hooves.
My man got hooves. My man got hooves. He looking good. My man with hooves.
Just like he should.
He clippity clap. He clippity clap. My man looks good. My man with hooves. You could end this episode with that, with the guitar. It was the key of G, which is what Dr. Pudd was playing early on. I thought you would like the little hidden guitar intro. Little. That's the same as
yes,
as our little theme.
Yes, it is.
Right? But it was our theme isn't in the key of G though, is it?
No.
Was it key of
E for Erik?
Key of E for Erik.
Right. It's not D for Dennis. It's E for Erik.
Oh, it's all right.
It's okay.
Your name's listed first for a reason. You do all the work.
It ain't alphabetical.
All I do is call in.
Yes.
Yeah, well, so here we are. We have a lovely day today. 70s.
We had a lovely day today, up to 80s, I think.
Oh, lovely.
It was nice.
Yeah, we've had just such a good time with Dr. Pudd here.
Yeah. Is he a good guest?
We went out to Arcadia Brewery, which is the home of now nationally sold beers, and it's quite a sight here. It's on the Kalamazoo River, and you can dock your canoes or your boat or whatever and walk right up to the building. And the building has got it's 24-foot ceilings.
Nice.
And the garage doors are 24 feet, and they are probably 20 feet wide. And there's two of them, and when they open, the entire front of the building is exposed to the grassy patio area where tables are, and then dipping down into a nice path toward the water. And near the water is a huge fire pit, and there's a nice stage on the right, one of the biggest stages in town, frankly. Almost as good as Bell's stage. Bell's Brewery up the street as well has got some excellent sound rooms, good blues rooms.
So you got pretty good nightlife in the zoo.
Yeah. Oh, we do. And we went.
All the animals in the zoo.
Yeah, the K. K Zoo.
Okay.
The K. Gibson guitars, hither, thither, yon. Home of Gibson guitar, Kalamazoo.
Is it?
Oh yeah, Keith Richards.
Originally Bale Creek.
Hey.
You're not allowed to speak. He's got to edit it all out, so you got to stop that. He's observing, but he's an active observer. And so
yeah, that's why recording studios have that sheet of glass where the people can observe but not be heard.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I could put him in a soundproof booth.
Right.
That would work as well. I have a cedar chest about the size of a coffin. That would probably work.
Nice.
But yeah. So wonderful day here.
So we're approaching the 50th anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing, which is pretty exciting.
Ah, yes.
You're older than 50. Tell me
by margin.
Give me your where were you?
So here was the thing. Is that when Neil Armstrong landed on the moon,
yep,
and he stepped off the ladder,
yep,
nobody really expected him to jaunt and jump and run all over the moon. And, the golf shot was planned, but his exuberance and his personality, unscripted.
Right.
And the story of the man who designed the spacesuit, who was in fascination of watching what happened and praying that, my God, I hope the spacesuit is
right.
And so Neil Armstrong decides not just to do what was expected to be done, but takes off running and jumping, and no one knew whether the spacesuit would withstand. It was not ever tested for that type of jubilant,
right? But
he would not be subdued, and so
I mean, it's minimal gravity. That's got to be exciting to jump around in. Who could avoid that, right?
Who would? Well, not us, but we're not trained astronauts. But he was that kind of guy, and so that exuberance and that fun,
right,
part of it, and then the wonderful idea of the flag,
right,
and the special design, so it looked like it was unfurled as opposed to a little brace at the top, because obviously no wind on the moon,
yes,
to blow it around. But that whole thing was like, space travel was scary, but space travel was obviously so much fun.
Yes.
I mean, who gets to jump and land 40 feet away?
Right, exactly.
And hit a golf ball, like, what was it, a couple of miles? Right?
Yeah, I don't know. My recollection.
You got to post.
My recollection is that the golf ball was on a subsequent mission, but.
Oh well, okay.
But still.
Conflating.
But yeah, and that jubilation, as you say, what I love about it is that it brings, like, literally, it brings humanity to the moon. The playfulness. It was a super daring thing, but how nice that he wasn't totally serious. Like, okay, here's your trowel full of moon dust.
Right.
But
right.
it was let's have fun here.
And so since then, there's been with the downturn of the economy and the difficulty of budget and the politics of space and all that.
Right.
And then the Cold War issues, which amazingly were less a part of the ongoing work over the past 20 years. We managed to get over and past much of that. And now, of course, the current president wants to go from gallivanting and jumping and hitting golf balls on the moon to having a fucking uniformed military force, a space force.
Right.
It's like, really?
No,
We're
but
militarize space.
Yeah, but it was the Cold War that got us there, because we were super terrified that the Russians were going to get there first.
And use it for military purposes, correct?
But yeah, there was that. And last year I was lucky enough to go into the Cosmonaut Museum in Moscow and see how just utterly proud they are of Yuri Gagarin and their efforts in the space race. They were the first. They had the first man in space, and all the they've got these monuments to the dogs and stuff that they sent up, Laika and the others, and just how Yuri is the only non-national leader that is buried in Red Square with all of the other greats of Russia, because he was just that important for the national identity. But we can't. People like to say, "Oh well, we went to the moon because of exploration," but I think really the purse strings were being held by people that were afraid of the Russians, and it really dropped off because the USSR collapsed.
Yeah.
And let me continue a little bit. They're making a TV series. It's already been made, but it's going to be released. It's one of the first ones that is made by Apple. Apple is trying to get into the Netflix Amazon TV production market, and their TV show is I don't know if you've heard of this show. I think it's on Amazon Prime, The Man in the High Castle.
No.
It's based on some books by Philip K. Dick, I think, but it is exploring what the world would be like if Nazi Germany won World War II.
Oh yes, I did. I saw some trailers and was pretty fascinated by the
premise. Yeah,
yes.
I watched I think the first episode and it didn't really grab me, but I love the idea of the premise. Anyway, this show by Apple is it's exploring the counterfactual universe where the Russians got to the moon first, and as such, I guess the USSR was had a boost, and the space race continued for another 50 years.
Right.
And what that would look like, because if we hadn't just said, all right, well, we did that, we're better, we're going to keep all our money down on Earth now. If that hadn't happened, to imagine what the world would be like now is pretty interesting.
Yeah, well, I listened recently to John Kennedy, President Kennedy's speech to announce the race to the moon, and he was such a magnificent orator, and his speechwriters were so impeccably optimistic and motivational.
Yeah,
that and those are the days I remember as a kid watching a black and white TV and seeing the president.
How inspirational,
and knowing it was my first awareness. I was born in 1953, so 1962, right? I'm 9 years old. I'm old enough to have these, serious impressions of what's happening, and it first instilled in me the knowledge and the pride of being a countryman in a patriot.
Right, being a member of a nation,
and understanding the leader and his call to arms, and the way he did it and the way he said it, and knowing that I was witnessing there on my stomach with my elbows propped up before the black and white TV that was about 12 inches wide, that there was history being made, and I knew it.
Mm-hmm.
And I, at the time, being in grade school, I had already become an avid reader of historical biographies, and had a collection of biographies that my parents had bought me, recognizing my desire to learn.
Right.
Or maybe I got it at school. I can't remember. I think my parents got it for me, but it was a series of not autobiographical, but biographical of famous Americans that went back. And I remember particularly, of course, as we all do as kids, the Benjamin Franklin and his incredible range of employment and dedication, and the true Renaissance man.
Yeah, the width and depth of his knowledge was impressive. Yeah,
right, and then others, and ended up had some context of historical significance driven by individuals and their personalities and their desire to as you mentioned earlier, pushing the envelope. It's very very memorable,
I especially like the part of that speech where he says, "We're going to do this because it's hard."
Yes.
And that's that sentiment of we can do anything. We're gonna. If it was easy, anyone could do it, but we're going to do it because it's hard.
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills, because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win.
So is it a Tom Hanks production of Apollo, the first Apollo, where Ed Harris is in Houston?
That's Apollo 13.
Apollo 13.
The one that's where they, with the famous quote of Houston, we have a problem.
Yes, and the 50th anniversary of his Apollo
11. 11's the one that actually set foot on the moon. There's renewed interest in this. There was a movie last year, at the end of last year, that I recently watched called First Man, that was excellent. They really focused on who Neil was, and apparently his family members all concur that that they did a really good job of depicting who he was. The problem with the Benjamin Franklin, well, first of all, it was really cool back then that if you had enough money where you didn't really have to work and you were also curious and clever, you could become an expert on almost everything. And you could because we our depth of knowledge was so shallow back then that you could become an expert on philosophy and psychology and physics and all of these different things. Whereas now, you got to take a PhD and study only one specific thing to get anywhere near the understanding of what the people that know the most about that know. But there's also the concept that sort of way of learning history. They call it the great man fallacy or something like that, where history is has a sort of a staccato. There were certain great people that advanced everything forward, but if you actually really dig into the research, they were helped by so many other people, and the reason that every scientific paper now has like 20 authors is because you can't just do things on your own anymore. But also, they didn't do things on their own, but they claimed that they did. That makes sense.
Well. So it's an interesting point about our place in history. I mean, when we consider, as we do during these happy hours of our life, as a kid, what era did you want to live in? And if you could go back in time and you could have your youth or your young adult, as I get older, of course, you think of young adult and adult years. And I have been mesmerized by the Old West and the Wild West, and have a collection of Larry McMurtry books of every book he ever wrote, almost all, situated in the West and in those old times. And sort of like when you could...
It feels so dangerous.
Yes. And you were judged by your wits and by your ability to manage how to live and how to survive in a hostile environment where anything went. And so gunplay and arguments turned into, killings and rough stuff. And the whole notion of horseback and dogies, the dogies retire and you get your campfire going, play a little harmonica.
I think
coffee and beans,
I think a lot of our, especially movies, because of the way you can make movies, I think a lot of that life was spent on your horse, going on a 10-hour trip somewhere with no, just the landscape going by drip by drip, and
in the weather.
Yeah, in the weather. You can't say that and then not have me ask you if you've seen Westworld.
Yes, followed it quite closely, and must admit to being somewhat befuddled most of the time about what I was watching. Not to underestimate the degree of interest and just focus I had on it, but never quite being clear
as to what was what and what was real and what.
What?
The thing I love about Westworld is how it raises, like all great science fiction, raises moral dilemmas about technology that is yet to come. And what Westworld did was, eventually, on a long enough timeline, we're going to be able to build humanoid robots, and we're going to be unable to stop ourselves from building humanoid robots that are pretty darn indistinguishable from another human. And the question is, at what point does your moral compass come online? And at what point, now if you see one of these little robot dogs from Sony and you go and you kick it over and it falls over, no one's going to be like, "Oh, you asshole," because it's a toy. But at some point, they're going to be so indistinguishable that, like, the people that in the Westworld series, they go to that ostensibly an amusement park to rape and kill robots. It's like, what sort of sociopaths are signing up for this? Like, I think any normal person would have trouble doing that, and it brings this idea up that at some point we're going to have to start considering the morality and to go. It seems really far to say now, but like the rights of robots to not be hurt, and that's so ambiguous in our current status.
So I must say, you remind me of a lot of what I learned from John Connor. The idea that we as a society, that there will be a line and that someone will suggest the line is there,
right,
and say it can't be crossed, I think is lunacy. I think that it's all driven by corporate and capitalistic motivation, and there will not be, and there will never be, any type of effort that will be productive to overwhelm that with some sense of decency. That will be completely driven. And what it will be is that there will be this 1% of the wealthiest people in the world will be able to integrate with this robotic culture, and the rest of the world will not. And we won't even know so much about what that's like because we can't afford it. But it's like a lot of those things, eventually it will be affordable. By the time it's affordable, all those decisions will already have been made, and they will not be made for some type of ethical or moral reason. So we're going to be the subject of what the wealthy people decide is the best use of this, and it will not be contained. It will not be contained.
So you're a believer in something like Westworld becoming a reality, in that, because that's what that is depicting.
I'm afraid so. I believe that each of us, and you in particular, have the potential for wanting to commit a pseudo act of violence without repercussions or accountability, because it really isn't violent. It's less like playing at it. So the idea that as I know you thought about is, getting a double-bladed axe and applying that axe to different parts of your office,
right,
mashing it around, in a frenzy at the end of a happy hour, not out of anger, but in sheer glee of being let loose and free to let that part of you, that base part of you, which in you is larger, probably more prominent.
Would you call it my inner Viking?
I call it your inner clovenness.
Yes. Your
inner clovenness. It's like, it's no surprise to our listeners that a man with cloven hooves would want to take a double-A blacks and just rip his office into shreds. Look, the secret's out.
Well,
all right.
I mean,
your poor blessed mother. I'm sorry that this is going to upset her. That the world knows now, but there's a lot of things about you that I know.
Right.
That now are coming out, and yeah.
I mean, if I'm totally honest, this is like my fifth or sixth office.
Right.
Because that happens sometimes.
The other one.
Yeah.
Right. You just so I'm glad that you've been able to control it. Now I know you're looking forward to the opportunity there, but
right.
Maybe we'll dedicate a podcast simply to the sound of you trashing.
Of the destruction, yes.
Broken lamps. And when you do that,
well,
what do you,
well,
are you shouting and yelling and screaming, or you do it in utter silence, which is even spookier?
Okay.
And you've destroyed your other offices.
I think we need to state for the record who among us on this podcast has broken more lamps. I think that might be you at the moment.
Well, I don't know.
But I'm close on your tail.
I don't know. I've broken maybe one for sure.
But it broke you too, so that's really, we'll call it even.
Broken? I hit a 41 and then a 42. Am I broken? I don't think so. I think I'm better. I think that so what you don't know.
So the tendon that it severed was what was holding you back in your golf game.
Apparently. Now look, we can make money off this too. Now, this requires a commitment of a golfer to say, look, you won't be able to golf for a while.
Golf wrist surgery.
But when you come back after your damage, after the
right
8 weeks, right?
After we've operated on your wrist.
Severed.
Yeah.
Well, and several of my fingers are fully or partly numb, and that apparently is aiding the lightness of my grip in my left hand.
Yeah.
And so it's and so if you want that, we know how to get there.
Is that?
We know how to
I mean,
get there. If you pay for it.
With sports, you've got performance-enhancing drugs that
There you go.
have to be
Performance-enhancing
surgery.
lamp. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
perform well.
But
Well, yeah.
but at what point do you draw the line? Like I've never.
Here you go again.
It's always
with drawing the lines.
Yeah, well,
There's no lines will be drawn.
I like to draw, man.
No, there won't. There will be no lines drawn here either.
Give me my crayon. Golf and tennis now are having to outlaw technology that makes you hit the ball further or faster or harder, and the same is going for all the different sports. Like we can, like if your Formula One racers have to can't go over a certain number of horsepower or whatever, and the whole performance enhancing drugs thing, like with the baseball players that were hitting so many excess of home runs. I'm of two minds of that, because on the one hand, yeah, we should make it fair for the people that aren't willing to take drugs, but on the other hand, what are we paying to watch? We're paying to watch humans do the most amazing superhuman stuff ever. So why not let people surgically enhance themselves to be so much more incredible than everyone else? I don't know. Do you have thoughts on this?
Well, I think we'll move toward replacement of human limbs with bionic limbs,
right.
And very likely golfers will be the first to give up from the shoulder down both of their arms for.
So I can still keep my hooves?
For bionic limbs, which grip the golf club based on an engineering algorithm,
right?
That you've seen the
Is that going to make it hard
science...
to eat?
No, not
you
at all.
have to flip your food
Not
up with your sandwich?
No, it's a perfectly no.
Use your sandwich. Eat your sandwich.
Well, so the point is that what are you willing to give up for a better score, a better outcome? Well, for me,
everything.
Shoulders on down, 2 bionic arms, programmed so that the science when they show Tiger or Phil or anybody who's accomplished daily is great, where they show the science of the swing and
the torque and whatnot,
the torque of the back and the trajectory, and they show it in mathematical formulas,
right, yeah.
and they show that. Well, that will all be programmed in.
Sure.
So when you go to your forearm, where there's a flap, both our forearms, there's a flap. You open the flap, you do your adjustments, and all you got to do with your torso is stand there and let your bionic arms
do all the work.
Well, do most of it. Of course, you don't have a bionic back, although they will allow eventually the wearing of a special vest, a backpack vest that hooks around your hips and gives you an extra torque on your back.
Does it have a jetpack?
What's that?
Does it have a jetpack to get from the tee to your fairway?
Well, okay. All right.
Hey,
well, I think that walk from hole to hole is taxing. Sure.
Well,
sure it is. You saw the U.S. Open in the amazing game of Wildwood and his. I've got this right.
I did not. I had a family occasion with my daughter.
Well, Koepka, who has won 2 U.S. Opens in a row, started out the day with par birdie, and was within 2 after like 6 to 7 holes, but. Woodland, I think his name is Woodland. We have to check this. I hope I'm not wrong. Because he did a nice job.
Are you aware that they have swing machines which test the golf clubs, such that the hard part about golf is ideally you want to do the same swing every single time, but humans are fallible and we are unable to achieve that goal. But we've already been able to build machines that can do that, and that's really useful for testing the golf clubs to see, this one actually does go a little bit further or whatever.
That's what those bionic arms will do for you. Along with it's probably the case that when you put on the jetpack and the vest, along with the bionic arms, that there is a button you push.
Yeah.
Button takes a rod from the backpack and drives that rod into the ground behind you, so that you're pivoting perfectly well without getting off your line.
Right.
So much like today, as Dr. Putt had said, that I wasn't getting my divots. What he meant to say was when I was hitting my woods and my second shots, yesterday I was hitting them so nicely that there was a sweet little divot that came out.
Yeah.
And so I was hitting it just right. And today, not so much. Well, one of the reasons is that I was taking my backswing, I was dipping my back shoulder, and I was when I was coming through, I was closing and hooding my club. Well, with a rod,
Don't be hooding your club,
that
man.
shoots out of the back of your backpack and takes you into the ground, you're going to rotate perfectly well without getting offline. So these will all be sanctioned.
I mean,
and we'll play on the moon on top of that, and then look out.
I'm pretty stable on my four hooves.
For
Oh, you thought I only had two hooves.
I know you only have two. Why are you
Fabricating?
fascinating?
Fascinating.
Well, no, not fabricating. You're fascinating, or you're dreaming as a cloven man that two hooves isn't enough, but now you're daydreaming that you have four.
I mean, a man can dream,
I'm troubled by you in so many ways. I'm not sure where this ends up. I think we may need an intervention, complete psychological, physical review. I hope it doesn't delay future podcasts, but I'm worried about you. I don't, and I care about you, and I think you need some assessment.
Well, thank you very much. I've got a life rant to bestow upon our listeners. 6 years ago, we bought a new washing machine, and it worked okay for about 2 years, and then something started to go wrong in the button interface panel, and we had the technician come out, and he did some things, and he said, yeah, the computer part of this is broken, but that's so hard to replace that we're going to just go ahead and replace your whole damn washing machine. And it was still under warranty, under the 2-year warranty, so they gave us a whole new washing machine. And so that was 4 years ago. And recently, it started to make this incredible noise when it's doing its centrifuge to get all the water out. It sounds like a goddamn jet engine. It's like you're on an aircraft carrier and the damn thing's about to take off. And if you're in Spain, we have our washing machines in the kitchen for some reason that doesn't make sense to Americans, but anyway. And if you're in the kitchen or in a nearby room, like I need to have my noise canceling headphones on because it's unsafe for about the 15 minutes or whatever that it's doing this thing. So I called up the company and said, hey, our thing's making this noise, and the receptionist lady said, oh yeah, that sounds like I bet I know what that is. It's going to cost you. Normally that costs about 200 euros to fix. And I imagine the whole thing when it was new was maybe 500 euros.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, fine. And she said, but before I can call our technician, I'd like to talk to you about this super deal that we have, where even though the price is going to be 200, we can sell you a plan for 210 euros that both covers this repair and gives you a year of furthermore coverage for the following year. And I was like, fuck you. I hate it when someone says, when you want to go and buy, one apple and they say, well, you could get the second apple for 10% of the cost. And you're like, I don't want a second apple, but if you're going to sell it to me like that, I have to take it because, you can't avoid it. Anyway, so I said, fine, yes, we'll take the thing. And so then they send the technician out, and it's the same old guy that came last time. And I'm like, hey. She's like, hey. And he starts.
How you been?
Right. He starts looking at it.
How's the family?
And he opens the door to the thing, shakes it a little bit, and then closes it and starts diddling around on his iPad, filling out forms and shit. And for a while, I just sort of let him be, but then I came up. I said, so you've stopped looking at the washing machine. Do you know what the problem is? He's like, oh yeah, I knew that as soon as I walked in. It's this common thing where the axis gets a little bit off kilter, and then it's bumping up against some, your springs and braces and stuff aren't properly aligned. And this is a common thing. Normally it doesn't happen to a 4-year-old washing machine. Normally it happens to an 8 or 9-year-old washing machine, but we know what this is. It shouldn't be any problem. And we had a little bit of confusion because because we've had 2 of the bastards. The serial number didn't match up on his records, and luckily I had the paper that he had given me before. Anyway, he says, "Sure, yeah, we know what this is." Because we were on this plan, he said, "I'm going to have to call back to headquarters to get official permission authorization to do this repair." And he said, "For sure, they'll come back to me by the end of the day." This was in the morning. And I said, fine. And so he left. I said, see you soon, I hope. And then a couple days went by, and I called, and they didn't pick up. All our agents are busy. Your patronage is important to us. And so it kept on going. And I called back the next day, and then a week went by, and then we had this whole communion thing, and finally, the other day, I called and I got through, and I said, "Hey, I was told it was going to be just that day," and so the lady that answered the phone said, "Okay, hold on, let me contact the technician," and so she called him, and I guess she passed me through to him, and he said, "Oh yeah, I submitted that and they rejected it."
Oh my God!
And he said, "I thought they would have told you that. I didn't think it was my responsibility to tell you that they had rejected my offer." And I said, "Okay. So what is?" I said, "What is your? How much do you think it's going to cost? Because clearly it's going to cost more than this $210 that they charged me for this year of service, and because obviously if they rejected it, they were going to come out losing." And he said, "All right, well, read me off your serial number again, and I'll call you back in 10 minutes." So anyway, he called me back in 10 minutes and said, "I think it's going to be like $290. It's not going to get up to $300, but it's going to be like $290. So I said, "All right, thank you." And I said, "So how should I talk to the people that rejected it?" And he said, "Probably call the number that you called originally. They ended up forwarding you to me." So I called them, and they said, "Oh yeah, it was rejected. But don't worry, sir. Whenever it's rejected, we haven't charged you that $210 figure. It's that we've nullified that contract, that policy. So don't you worry." And I said, "Well, okay, great, but our washing machine still doesn't work, and I fear every time we put it on, and I have to put on my fucking headphones so we can wash our clothes, that it's going to get worse." And so she said, "All right, well, let me. I'll have someone call you back tomorrow." That was yesterday. And so today, the same lady called me back. She said, "Oh, I thought my coworker was going to come in today, but she's off, so I'm calling you." Turns out it's with all the tax and the labor and everything, it's going to come out to €250. And I said, "Fine. I wish I didn't know about the psychology of anchoring with a high price and then going low so that it seems like it's cheap, but fine, yes." And then I said, "Look, you better." It better be either today or tomorrow, because otherwise we're going out of town for a while, and we're not gonna be able to do it." And she said, "All right, well, fine. Let me call the technician." And so anyway, she called me back and said, "Yeah, we can do it tomorrow." So tomorrow the technician's going to come and tear apart our washing machine and leave it fixed for when we get back from vacations.
Good Lord!
So isn't being an adult fun?
Tribulation.
Hooray for being a homeowner.
Dominoes. This and then that. This.
It's like you could make a mini series on HBO with that.
I have Rant around my Spectrum Wi-Fi and television hookups. I have a similar rant around what I'm trying to get done with my billing.
Yep.
The same type thing where you're talking to computers. "I'm sorry, sir, I didn't understand that." I start screaming into the phone. Customer service.
I want an agent.
Representative. "I'm sorry." And the computer is ever polite and ever professional.
Your business is important to us, sir.
Give me up, and it's recorded, so you're doing it for the people who are listening.
Yes.
Give me up. I want to talk to a fucking person.
Yeah.
Give me a person. And then they say, "We're sorry, we don't understand you." You say, fucking person. And it doesn't work.
No.
And then you have to adapt. You have to say, Representative.
Right.
Representative. And then you get it. And then they say, so what's your number? And I say, I've entered it 3 times. Do you really not have it?
Right, exactly.
Oh, here it is.
Right.
Oh, and I say, oh, so you did have it. But you asked me, well, it was for confirmation purposes. I've been on the phone an hour and a half. I need resolution.
Wait, is this why the people are killing all the robots in Westworld?
That's it.
Because
That's it.
it's like the robot saloon owner is like, well, sir, would you like a whiskey? And you're like, God damn it, I asked you for whiskey an hour ago or whatever.
And what do you hear in the background as the whiskey's being served? Is you hear the piano player.
Piano?
And what's piano?
Okay.
Piano player.
All right.
And then some cowpoke
Right.
comes by. And what does he do?
Exactly.
And you know why?
Why is that?
We all got the blues, man.
We all got the blues, man. Do you remember how in Westworld all the player pianos were playing like modern pop songs?
Yeah.
Just to fuck with the viewer.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Totally.
Exactly.
Totally.
Tis true.
All right. Time's up.
All right.
If you've enjoyed what you just heard, you can support us by telling a friend or sharing us on social media. Monthly donations to help us pay for hosting and editing can be provided at patreon.com/happyhour. That's all one word, happy hour. All our episodes, including show notes for each episode, are available on our website, happyhour.fm. You can tweet at us at happyhour.fm, that's with a dot spelled out, happyhour.dotfm, or we can receive email at the same name, happyhourdotfm@gmail.com. It would also be great if you could give us a positive rating on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. That really helps other people find us. See you next week.